Yo, YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy, Faze. We are back with another video, guys. And today, man, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about Black Ops Cold War, the beta, and everything that we learned about this beta, what we love, what we hate, and what needs to be changed, because there are definitely some things that have to be changed before this game releases in a few weeks. Hopefully, they can get as much of this changed as possible before this game actually goes live. So, we got a lot to talk about. We're going to be watching some gameplay from the beta as well while we're talking about this. Let's get right into it. Let's go. So I wanted to start out with some positivity in this video before we get into the negativity and some of the cons, because I mean there is a pretty big laundry list of things that I have like as worries or things that probably I would like to see tuned, even though there's some things I really like about this game. First of all, of course, the guns. I really do like the guns. For a beta, it's probably the most balanced weapon beta we've ever seen, and it's not even close. I mean, you think back to how good the Razorback was in BO3, or the MP5 in Modern Warfare's beta, or in BO4 there was like a handful of broken guns. But in this game, there weren't that many guns that felt too broken compared to most. Obviously, we'll talk about snipers a little bit later, but overall, very happy with the guns and the weapons in this game as a whole. The base game itself, I actually really like the design of the game, the colors, the speed of the game, the recoil like styles of the weapons. I really enjoyed the base of this game quite a bit. But obviously, you know, some of those things kind of get washed out with some of the more glaring issues so far that we had in the beta itself. The attachments, I really like the attachments in this game. I know some people don't have like the best view of the gunsmith as a whole, but I might actually prefer the gunsmith over the old style of Call of Duty attachments and how it put out. It's just a little bit more interesting to create a nice variety inside of pubs and how you want to play. Obviously, again, in competitive, it doesn't really matter because you're going to have the one meta that everybody uses. But inside pubs, I think it's a pretty interesting like aspect to the game for like Warzone and for pubs and everything else. I enjoy it overall. And of course, the spawns were significantly more reliable. We got hardpoint and control this weekend in the beta, which was a blast. And tons of fun seeing those competitive game modes, and tons of fun seeing those competitive game modes in the beta to be shown off and played. So that was a blast, and definitely makes me feel good about the future of how this game can play competitively, because we're seeing those game modes this early on, unlike Modern Warfare, who was burying the competitive game modes at all hopes, probably to avoid the negativity as much as possible last year. But you know, for now, I think those are like the biggest pros. But again, in this video, I think it's most beneficial to talk about the things that hopefully will get tuned and changed. At the end of the day, I just hope that these things end up getting tweaked and fixed in certain ways throughout the upcoming few weeks before this game actually gets released. So let's get into some of these negatives. So let's talk about aiming. This is something that I think a lot of people have been talking about already, is that the base ADS speeds, the sprint out times for weapons are definitely too slow. The ADS speeds are just a little bit slower than normal, and especially when you don't have the attachments unlocked. Like early on in this beta, there was such a negative experience because the ADS was so slow, the sprint out speeds were incredibly slow, and the base AR strafe speeds are way too slow. And so like those three things definitely need to be improved and sped up a little bit, I think, to make the whole game feel a little bit smoother as a whole. I do think that once you had all the attachments unlocked, the game felt a lot better with the ADS speeds improved, the sprint out speeds improved. A lot of those things just improved quite a bit, made the game feel a lot better, but I would like to see that, you know, definitely sped up even more for sure. Also, when it comes to like aiming, the aim assist is very strong. I've seen some pretty interesting opinions out there online about how, you know, very increased aim assist affects how the lobbies feel, and that like the sweatiness of the lobbies could be in part contributed to the increased aim assist, because worse players who have worse shots are able to hit more shots even though they're not as good, because the aim assist is so high, therefore, you know, shrinking the skill gap at the top 40% of players a little bit closer together, and that could affect it. Obviously, I think at the same point, skill-based matchmaking was still very strong in this beta, and it's definitely frustrating, man. It just makes me want to never play pubs because of the increased skill-based matchmaking and how strong it actually is. If there's actually research out there that skill-based matchmaking makes people play more, I want to see it, because I don't know how that could possibly make the majority of people want to play more. I mean, yesterday in the last day of the beta, I was like, what would it be like if I, you know, started playing on a new account? And so I went to my other account that I have on my PS4 and tried playing the beta, and I'm like, oh my word, I'm having so much fun. I went like, you know, 45-7 in my first game, and I'm like, this feels like pubs again. And I was having some fun. I'm like, my word. You know, I said it on the podcast, which is coming out right after this video, by the way, because I'm a little bit delayed on the uploads. But it feels like I'm playing the Olympics when playing some of these pubs matches because of how sweaty it is. So those were some definite issues for sure. And the aim assist, I feel like, could get toned down just a little bit. It's really strong right now, and maybe give us some more options like what Infinity Ward did with Modern Warfare, with certain different types of aim assist dynamic curves and the aim assist options and everything else would be nice as well. So when it comes to movement, the movement speeds were increased a little bit from the alpha, which I think was something that was definitely needed. And now I really like I think that the base movement speed is in a pretty good spot. Again, the smoothness with the delays to ADS after throwing stuns, using score streaks, and using equipment is definitely still a problem. And I want to see that delay reduced, because I think that would help smooth over some of like the clunkiness of movements that are sometimes there. And maybe that's just, you know, us not being used to the movements yet, and me not specifically being used to the movements, but I felt like that could have been, you know, improved for sure. Drop shotting is still really, really bad. I mean, I'm not like horribly opposed to it, but at the same time, I do like drop shotting, and I would like to see it at least improved and made usable. I know they have the stock that allows you to drop shot, but like you're giving up quite a bit of benefits from other stocks to use the drop shot stock, which I don't think is going to make much sense to do. And so at the end of the day, I don't feel like drop shotting is worth it at all in this game, and with how bad it is right now, it's just really frustrating. So I would like to see it changed. I'm not sure if that one's actually going to be changed though. And the slide is in like a better spot than it was in the alpha, I think, but I'm still not a big fan of it, man. I'm really not. The movement is just a little bit clunky still, and so I would like to see it, you know, tweaked and hopefully improved, but I'm honestly not sure how to improve it. It feels like it could be a pretty abused mechanic still. Obviously there's no evidence of that yet, but I think at some point, once Shotzi gets his hands on this game for a few months, some crazy things could happen. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so I would like to see some tweaks to the slide. I still think it's not ideal, and I honestly prefer the Modern Warfare slide at this point. When it comes to perks, I don't love like the selection of perks. Hopefully there's more selection when the game actually comes out, because right now, not very exciting. Having, you know, tack and flak and whatever, like scavenger, and then using dead silence. And dead silence, you know, was in a better spot for the beta, but it still doesn't make your slide silent. So if you have dead silence, you basically, what's the point of sliding? Because your slides are still not silent. So I don't even know how I feel about that if it's not going to make your slide silent. So I'm really hoping they fix that to make your slide silent as well. And then when dead silence actually works, how dead silence is supposed to work, then we can actually enjoy these games and have fun and competitive, and not get sound horde 24/7 with our Astros cranked all the way to the right here. Because like, what in the world, man? So maps are obviously a big time problem still. Moscow, Cartel, Satellite, Miami, the multiplayer maps, they're a problem. I mean, Moscow is, again, the only map that is at all viable competitively. Cartel hardpoint wasn't the worst thing ever, but I'd be pretty surprised, very surprised, if that ends up being a competitive map. Satellite in Miami. Satellite's a fun dom map for, you know, pubs. I think it's kind of fun, but not a good map for competitive. Miami is just a trash map all the way around. I don't know why they decided to make it dark. It's way too big. The map is way too big, way too open. The middle of the map is such a cluster. The power positions are trash. It's a bad map. So, and Cartel's a horrible map when it comes to anything besides hardpoint. It is absolute trash, and worse than Miami and all those other game modes, in my opinion. I think this year we're going to use throwback maps, or like a lot of remastered maps, for competitive. If they're going to have a handful of remastered maps at launch, I don't know how we don't have at least like 3 or 4 of them in competitive at this point, unless this game is going to release with like 16 maps, which is possible, but hard to say when that'll actually happen. When it comes to control specifically, Moscow, I think, again, is the only control map that I think would be competitive, but that A zone has to get moved. It has to get moved up or changed or some way, because it's way too toxic sitting there like right in where that like A dom zone I think is. That is really bad. Like maybe move it up by the escalators or something. I don't know. It needs to be changed somehow. And trophy systems are still a big question mark for me inside of hardpoint and control with how it's going to play out. We have 4 players, and you can get a trophy every minute in 20 seconds. So you could, in theory, have 4 trophies every minute in 20 seconds, which would probably work. but it's still a little iffy, and they're really easy to destroy. And so unlike Modern Warfare, they were actually kind of difficult to destroy, and you can get like multiple of them in one life if you have a few kills. I don't know. I'm not convinced that the trophies are going to be in a perfect spot right now. They might have to change how fast you can get them. Maybe get them a little bit faster, like maybe like every 60 seconds or every 45 seconds with 4 people running them could potentially work at that point to for a competitive meta. Scorestreaks still are absolute trash for competitive and for pubs. I don't really get why this is a benefit in any way to anyone. The bad players still aren't getting chopper gunners. The bad players still aren't getting their best streaks, and the good players are getting their chopper gunner every game. So it's like, how does that make any sense that you know you can go on a 10 streak and then get your chopper gunner because you already had like a handful of 3 or 4 streaks in the game? I don't think that makes sense at all, and it doesn't play well at all with the streak spam in the second half. That needs to get fixed, in my opinion, for everything, and revert back to normal kill streaks or score streaks or whatever. Either way, score streaks preferably. In competitive, they're completely useless unless they're fixed, and we need to see more streaks, more varieties of streaks before I even actually think they're going to be competitive at all. So right now it's an uphill battle to have streaks in competitive. I'm not so convinced it's actually going to happen. So a few other random things. Sniper flinch has to get fixed. There's no sniper flinch, and it's OP as it gets, especially on PC. Like, oh my word, when crossplay came out this weekend, the snipers were so OP. It is outrageous. That has to get fixed. You gotta have sniper flinch back in the game. Skill-based matchmaking, like I mentioned, way too strong, man. Way too strong. Has to get nerfed in some way for pubs to be playable. Player visibility still a little iffy. I'm not sure why the lighting of players maybe is too ultra realistic. The visibility seems a little weird at points. Obviously not just on Miami, but even on like Cartel. And so I would like to see like the player bodies kind of like increased lighting or changed in some way. I had a death cam glitch in Control, so I really don't want to have an issue with death cam glitches again here in Search and Destroy in after having it in Modern Warfare a whole year. Please, for the love of all things, get that fixed. And field mics are the most broken field upgrade or most broken attached or anything equipment I've ever seen in any Call of Duty ever. It is so OP that you can like see basically people like it's a VSAT, like it's like an orbital VSAT when you have a field mic down that you can see through walls, like it can hear through walls. How does that make any sense? And so the field mics are so broken, there's no spot for them in Call of Duty, and that's my last opinion on that video. Other than that, I really enjoyed the FOV slider, was great. The field of view slider was fantastic. Great addition to Call of Duty, much needed on console, and so that was very, very exciting. Some of the settings were nice. They were very receptive in adding in ADS sensitivities and dead zones for controllers, things like that. So again, they seem very receptive and good at fixing things, but overall I feel like this game needs another 6 months of development to really like iron itself out, and this is why they didn't have the beta until October, because normally we'd have a beta like in early to mid-August, and it was 2 months delayed, and that's why, because there's a lot of random small things that they were throwing in and throwing together and still trying out, and probably didn't have a full-time fixing going into this beta. So with that said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This will end up being a longer video than I thought it was going to be, but there was a lot to talk about. So drop your comments down below about what you guys think needs to get changed. Smash the notification bell, of course. I've been talking about that more lately. Hit the notification bell to make sure you get notified. YouTube's a little inconsistent with how they notify people of uploads, so I would really appreciate that. Like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. But as always, guys, I'm your boy Faze, and we will see you next time. I'm out.